Warren Buffett is one of the most widely discussed and written about business people and investors of all time, and for pretty good reason. He's got a very, very long-term track record, more than half a century of 20% per year returns, and there's a lot to learn from an investor like Warren Buffett, who in many ways is kind of a natural teacher and someone who enjoys sharing timeless investment principles. Now, there are a couple of pretty popular Buffett biographies out there. There's one that came out in 1995 called Buffett, The Making of an American Capitalist by Roger Lowenstein. And there's also this one, The Snowball, Warren Buffett and the Business of Life by Alice Schroeder, which is a book that came out in 2008 and then was actually re-released in 2009. They condensed it down slightly and also added a chapter or two on the financial crisis and some of the deals that Warren Buffett made through that time. Now, it's an absolute beast of a book. Even this condensed newer version is about 700 pages or so is kind of the core book, and then there's about another 120 pages or so of like references and things. And I finally got around to finishing reading this thing, and it's also been pretty useful to actually put together quite a few YouTube videos. It's been a great resource with lots of information on historic Warren Buffett and even Charlie Munger investments. It was the inspiration behind the video I did on Belridge Oil. It also included a story on British Columbia Power, and it included a lot of the details behind the Sanborn map video I made a week or two ago as well. So in this video, I want to give you some of my thoughts on this book, a bit of a general overview of what's in here, and also share some of the main lessons that I got out of reading The Snowball by Alice Schroeder. But before we get into that, we do have a sponsor for this video, and this video is sponsored by Hatch. Hatch is the platform that I personally use to do all of my US investing for me as a Kiwi based here in New Zealand. And Hatch is asking you to think about what your big and small tomorrow goals look like. For me, the goal has always been financial freedom, putting a little bit away today with the aim being that I can do the things that I want to do tomorrow. Everyone's tomorrow looks different, whether you want to buy your ultimate dream car, travel the world, or become financially independent. Reaching your goals starts by taking the first step. That's why I invest with Hatch, to help make my plans a reality. And if you want to get started investing with Hatch, check out the first link in the description, where you can get a free $20 New Zealand dollar top up when you make your first deposit of $100 New Zealand dollars or more before the 31st of December 2022. Now, the first thing you should know if you're interested in picking up a copy of this book is that it is about sort of the personal and business life of Warren Buffett. So if you're not really so interested in like the personal life aspects, I guess you kind of can just skip it, although it is somewhat integrated into a lot of the different chapters here. And there probably are a couple of other books that are more like purely financial focused, if that's what you're interested in. Something like The Complete Financial History of Berkshire Hathaway by Adam Mead has come out recently. There's also a book out there called Capital Allocation, The Financials of a New England Textile Mill, which covers the journey of Berkshire Hathaway from the mid-50s to the mid-80s. Those are probably a couple of resources you might want to look at if you're just purely interested in the investment aspect. But this book does also cover a lot of Buffett's upbringing, how he first got started making money doing newspaper runs and that sort of thing, and starting odd kind of side businesses. And even as he got older and more successful and well known, covers a lot of what was going on behind the scenes in his personal life there as well. There's a couple of other things I really like about this book. The chapters are relatively short. I have a reasonably short attention span sometimes. So there's about 60 odd chapters in this book that kind of make up the like 700 pages. So relatively short chapters, and each one of them has like a short period of time that the chapter covers, and also a particular location. And one of the really telling things that is just kind of classic Warren Buffett is Alice Schroeder, the author, was talking at the very beginning of the book about what it was like to kind of put this together, because Warren Buffett did work very closely with Alice Schroeder on actually putting this together. And one of the things he said to Alice Schroeder is that, you know, if you're ever interviewing someone and trying to basically figure out what happened at a particular point in Warren Buffett's life, if there's ever like two conflicting, slightly different versions of a story in people's kind of recollection of what happened, he said always choose the less flattering one and put the less flattering one in the book. So that just gives you a bit of a feel for the way that Warren Buffett wanted this book to be approached. Now, the Snowball book is broken into about 6 parts. The first one is like a shorter introductory kind of section. That's called The Bubble, and there's a chapter in there talking about one of the very rare times in which Warren Buffett actually made kind of a market call, which was when the market was very overvalued in 1999, 2000. So kind of starts out with that, and then it basically goes through just chronological order from the 1930s, and I think even a period in the 1800s of Buffett's family kind of history as well. But it basically goes predominantly from about the 1930s right through till about 2008 is when the book kind of finishes up. So after that introductory section called The Bubble, the 5 other sections are The Inner Scorecard, The Racetrack, Susie Sings, The King of Wall Street, and Claim Checks. And it covers right from Buffett growing up and, like I say, starting these small little side hustles and getting interested in stocks. It also goes through him first getting educated by Ben Graham and eventually going to work for Ben Graham, of course, the author of The Intelligent Investor and of Security Analysis. It then goes into Buffett starting his investment partnership, and he actually went on to start several investment partnerships pre-Berkshire Hathaway, which eventually merged together. It then goes through his acquisition of Berkshire Hathaway, his kind of building of that entity into what it really is today. And it also talks about, the relationships that were made and broken in some cases along the way. And it talks in quite a bit of detail, actually, particularly towards the end of the book, about some of Warren Buffett's philanthropy, some of the different charities that his kids set up, and of course the substantial sums of money that he's promised to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, I've written down a few things here that really jumped out to me from this book, either things that I didn't know before or things that were really reinforced or just things that I, enjoyed kind of reading about. Now, the first thing that will really jump out to you as you read this book is, frankly, that Warren Buffett just worked all the time. We think of Buffett as this guy that just sits in his office and reads all day, and that's pretty true. He does do a lot of that, but particularly in the early days, he was doing a lot of groundwork, talking to people in industries, going and talking to other investors, traveling to, the other side of the country to be active in governance roles in particular companies that he was invested in. It talks about, he doesn't only just read when he's at the office, but he goes home and kind of after dinner continues reading and continues pounding away. And he's basically just really, really never slowed down. It talks about Buffett kind of being in disbelief about how quickly he got old. And he right through that period just really didn't slow down. He kept the investment snowball rolling and kept kind of in a scorecard, relatively internal, although he did have a bit of a predisposition for sometimes wanting to get out into the public eye through, interviews and articles and that sort of thing. But he really just kept going and going and going. The other thing I picked up, which again I already really kind of knew, but it was reinforced in a lot of examples that were given in the book, is that Buffett was always hyper-focused on his reputation. That's kind of like the one or two things that he always really wanted. Is he always wanted a stellar reputation, and he kind of always wanted people to like him as well. And there's a couple of really great examples of that in the book, particularly through the Salomon brothers kind of crisis, which is covered quite extensively in the Snowball, where Warren Buffett had for a long time been kind of talking down on Wall Street, saying that it was, filled with snake oil salesmen and salesmen more generally, and people that were kind of set up in a lot of ways to just extract fees from their clients. And then all of a sudden we saw Warren Buffett actually go and invest in a investment bank with Salomon Brothers, and it all kind of turned to custard, and Warren Buffett almost lost a lot of reputation. And there's a pretty famous clip about him talking about employees of Salomon needing to maintain reputation for the firm as well.
After they first obey all rules, I then want employees to ask themselves whether they are willing to have any contemplated act appear the next day on the front page of their local paper, to be read by their spouses, children, and friends, with the reporting done by an informed and critical reporter. If they follow this test, they need not fear my other message to them. Lose money for the firm, and I will be understanding. Lose a shred of reputation for the firm, and I will be ruthless.
That reputation isn't just something that he wanted to maintain for, personal reasons and to kind of feel good about himself. It did actually generate, interesting investment opportunities as well. The financial crisis is a great example of that, where Warren Buffett was able to be this guy who had a reputation of being able to analyze investments and put money to work very quickly. He also had a great reputation of just, home run after home run after home run investments. So even though, some people might call some of the deals that he did during the financial crisis kind of sharky, where he's getting, double digit rates of return from just interest payments on preferred stock and stuff like that, those companies did get like the Buffett seal of approval. He had that strong reputation, and it allowed those companies to go on and then raise more capital to get out of deep, distressed situations in the financial crisis. A couple of other things I picked up from the book is that Warren Buffett really wasn't immune to investment mistakes, investment errors, and losing money from time to time, or just, having money sit there idle for a long period of time and, poor performing companies. We hear all the time about the success of, Coca-Cola or Apple or whatever, but he did also make mistakes and still ended up with, a phenomenal track record. For a couple of examples, he invested in Dexter Shoe, which was really, really heavily disrupted by international kind of competition. He made actually several insurance acquisitions, which performed very, very poorly. It was almost like every insurance acquisition he was doing it for a period of time, just once it was merged into Berkshire, just performed really badly and took a long time to come right. So it talks through some of those examples. Blue chip stamps died a lot faster than he probably anticipated as well. And the Berkshire textile mill itself was a really poor performing company for a long period of time. We'll also pick up through reading this book that Warren Buffett did sort of loosen the purse strings over time when he was in the really early days. He viewed a dollar spent on, some material good or whatever as potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, an opportunity cost into the future, because Buffett, knew he could invest that dollar and grow it and grow it and grow it. Yet he definitely became more relaxed as he got a little older. He started giving pretty large gifts to his children for Christmas or each year and that sort of thing. There's even also quite a significant example where there was a major tax reform act in the US, and through liquidating Berkshire Hathaway at the time, he probably could have saved about $185 million personally, which back then was much more significant to him than it might be today. And he deliberately chose kind of not to do that. So there's a couple interesting examples there of Buffett getting a little more relaxed. He was more willing to sit on stocks for a long period of time, even if the businesses weren't necessarily doing that well. And even if the money could potentially be kind of diverted elsewhere and generate better returns. Something like Coca-Cola that he's owned for a very long time is a good example of that. And finally, if you're interested in just great Warren Buffett investment stories, the Snowball is a great resource. Just to rattle off a few that I've written down, we have the Sanborn Map investment, obviously Berkshire Hathaway itself, Coca-Cola, Cap Cities, the Washington Post, Solomon Brothers, Blue Chip Stamps, the Nebraska Furniture Mart, a few other private businesses that he bought, and also some more obscure investments are kind of covered in the book as well. Things like investing in junk bonds through the financial crisis, like investing in distressed financial firms during the financial crisis, some liquidations he did in the 1950s, and also some investments that he actually regretted passing on, later down the track. He actually had the chance to buy a lot of the long-term capital management, like hedge fund assets, I believe in the late 90s that was. He ended up passing on it, and that was one of his major investment regrets. Overall, those are some of my thoughts on the Snowball. It is an absolute behemoth and took me far too long to get through, but I did enjoy it, and if you're interested in some of the things you heard in this video, I would definitely recommend picking it up. But that's all I've got from this one. If you want to see future content here on the channel, or if you've got any book recommendations and kind of value investing or personal finance books that you think I should check out, definitely let me know down in the comments section below. But like I say, that's it for this one, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.